Hello everyone, I hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining me for my Try It Out Tuesday. Now today I'm trying out the stamp set from Hero Arts. It's a stamp and cut set. Cute little floral images. It's called the Butterflies and Flower stamp and cut set. So I love the little stitch lines on here. I think it's adorable. They're on the flowers and the butterfly and the leaves. So I thought we'd make a card using this today. So I'm going to pull out my mini Misty. I already added a piece of Nina 80-pound cardstock. I'm going to grab the flower, the two leaves, and then also the stem here. We're going to stamp these twice, so I'm going to lower them just a bit. I'll just pick them up with the lid of my Misty, and I'll grab my Memento Tuxedo Black ink. Both the Nina and the Memento ink are Copic friendly, and so we're going to color in our images today with our Copic markers. I just flip my panel around. We're going to stamp it one more time, and then I'll zoom in and we'll get to coloring. Now I did leave the coloring in. I just sped it up quite a bit, but I used some yellows. I thought the flowers would be pretty little sunflowers, so just a few shades of yellow. This stamp and cut set comes with two dies. One will cut out the butterfly, and then one will cut out this flower here. So I'm going to end up fussy cutting out my little flower stems and then also the leaves. I just glue them together for my card today. I'm going to pull out my greens and color in my leaves and my stems. Pretty basic coloring. Now I did want to let you guys know that for my Try It Out Tuesday, like this stamp set came out last year, but whenever I do browse for new stamp sets to share with you guys, they may not be the most relevant stamp sets, but they're just what I like. And so anything that I show you today, I'll leave links in the description area in case you're interested. But my images are colored in, and I'll just take the coordinating die for my flowers and run that through my die cut machine, and then I'll grab my scissors and fussy cut out the stems and the leaves. Okay, since there was a button in the center of my flowers, I went ahead and grabbed one from my stash. It's a little wooden button. I just threaded it through with some white jute cord and then secured it to my flowers with a glue dot. And those are ready to go for later on. Now for my background panel, we're going to use some Distress Oxide inks. I chose three colors. The first color we're going to use is Spiced Marmalade. I'm going to be ink blending on some Bristol Smooth cardstock. I found this cardstock is amazing for blending. I'm not the greatest blender, but this cardstock makes it look like I am. I was going to use the candied apple and then changed my mind. I did a full switcheroo. I ended up using the squeezed lemonade. I like this color combination. I think it's bright and cherry. I'm just going to add one more layer with the spiced marmalade. The pink is picked raspberry. And then again, the yellow is squeezed lemonade. Once I'm happy with this, I'll spray some water on top of it just to give it a little bit of texture. I'll just dry it off with my towel here. I love the way that looks. It looks so fun. Okay, now I grabbed the smallest stitched rectangle die that I had in my set, and actually I don't think I've ever used this, but we'll use it today. So I cut out 5 panels. I ended up only using 3, but I saved the other ones because I think they could be used on the card later on. Okay, now I wanted to add a little bit of something, so I grabbed some Vintage Photo Distress Oxide ink. I added a little bit of water to it, and I'm actually going to grab my ink pad and smush a little bit more in my glass mat to get a little bit more of a richer color. I think I added a bit too much water. But I'll just take my paintbrush and do a little bit of splattering. I think the brown goes really pretty with this color combination here. Okay, now I'm going to put the other 2 that I'm not going to use aside, and I picked the ones that I thought would look prettiest, and I kind of flipped them around so the gradient was different on each level. I'm going to pop each one of my little panels up with some foam tape. And then we're going to place them right down the middle of a panel that I cut out with my largest stitched rectangle die. This panel is a 4" by 5¼ panel, so it's going to leave me a little bit of a white border on my card base. I like to do the top and the bottom, and then that way I can do the spacing between the middle one. Now we're going to go ahead and glue our flowers together, just using my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. I wanted 2 different sizes of flowers, so this one I'm going to lower the flower a little bit more down on the stem, so it's a shorter flower. I'll go ahead and add my leaves. I'll add the large one and then one of the small ones here. And then before I add the last leaf, I'm going to figure out my placement of the flowers, and I think I'm going to go for the center here. I'll go ahead and add my last leaf here. I'm not going to use the other larger leaf. Lovely. Now for my sentiment, I grabbed a piece of black cardstock. I'm going to go over it with my anti-static powder tool. I chose the hello and the friend. I just put them right next to each other on an acrylic block. And then I inked it up with my Versamark ink. And we're going to go over our sentiment with some white embossing powder. And then I went ahead and melted that. Okay, now since my sentiment was so bold, for me the brown splatters in the background, it looked pretty, but it wasn't flowing good for me. So I decided to take some cheap black acrylic paint that I had in my stash. It's just a little acrylic ink tube here. I put some on an acrylic block, and I'm going to add a little bit of water, and then using my paintbrush I'll just mix it together, and then I'm going to splatter this entire background with some black splatters. This way when I add my sentiment, I think it's just going to look a lot nicer. Okay, I waited for my panel to dry, and then I just glued, using my glue, I glued down my flowers. I'm going to trim off the rest of my sentiment here. I have to use my paper trimmer because I'm pretty sure I would have got it crooked. But I'll add a piece of foam tape behind my sentiment and just place that on the very bottom of my panel. And I had already glued down, just using my tape runner, my panel to an A2 size card base. It's a top folding card base, 4¼ by 5½ inches. Adding a little bit of sparkle with my Nuvo Aqua Shimmer pen. And that finishes off my card for today, guys. Thanks so much for joining me. I wish you a fantastic day, and we will see you again real soon. Bye-bye.